It happened 2 years before Maggie got sick. We were sitting in the living room on a Sunday afternoon. The television was on, but neither of us was really watching it. She was folding laundry. I was pretending to relax. At some point, she stopped folding. I didn't notice. She stood there holding one of my shirts, the blue one I wore to work when I wanted to look dependable. She said, "Henry, can I ask you something?" That should have been enough to wake me up. It wasn't. I sighed, not loudly, but just enough. That sigh was my real answer. "Still," she asked, "do you ever think about us? About how we are?" I muted the TV. I remember feeling irritated, not at her, but at the disruption. I said, "We're fine, Maggie. We've been married forever." She looked down at the shirt in her hands. "That's not what I asked." I leaned back and said something that still echoes in my skull. "What do you want me to say?" She hesitated. And in that hesitation was 40 years of swallowed sentences. "I just want to feel chosen. Still." I nodded. I nodded like someone acknowledging a weather report. I said, "You know I love you." And then I turned the television back on. That was the last time she tried. What I thought I said was, "I'm here. I care." What she heard was, "This isn't important enough to interrupt my comfort." That's the thing about emotional neglect. It doesn't sound cruel. It sounds reasonable. And that makes it lethal. I loved Maggie. That's the cruel irony. I just didn't show it in ways that reached her. Love that isn't felt might as well not exist. I believed consistency was romance. She needed curiosity. I believed stability was intimacy. She needed engagement. We were speaking different languages, and I never bothered to learn hers. People ask why someone doesn't change when the signs are obvious. The answer is simple. Change threatens identity. I wasn't just a man. I was the responsible one, the calm one, the dependable one. To admit I was emotionally absent would mean admitting I had failed at the very role I built my pride around. So I defended my self-image instead of my marriage, and Maggie paid the price. After that day, Maggie stopped reaching. She didn't stop loving me. She stopped expecting me. There's a difference. Expectation is hope with conditions. Love without expectation becomes lonely devotion. She stayed kind, stayed supportive, stayed gentle, but something essential had shut down, and I mistook peace for happiness. When Maggie got her diagnosis, I became attentive, but in the wrong way. I managed schedules, researched treatments, spoke to doctors. Everyone praised me. "You're such a good husband." I nodded and accepted it. What no one saw was that I still didn't sit with her fears. I held her hand, but I didn't ask what terrified her most. I kissed her forehead, but I didn't ask what she regretted. I thought being strong meant shielding her from emotion. She needed me to enter it with her. One night during treatment, she said, "Are you scared?" I said, "We'll get through this." She said, "That's not what I asked." I said nothing. That silence said everything. I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of feeling it. I had spent my life avoiding emotional extremes. Joy, pain, longing. They all required vulnerability. So I lived in the middle. And in the middle, love starves. I would turn off the television. I would sit beside her. I would say, "I don't know how to do this, but I want to learn." I would tell her she was chosen every day. But regret doesn't respond to apologies. It only listens to action. And my time for action was over. I waited for you. Those words weren't bitter. They were complete. She wasn't accusing. She was closing a chapter, and I realized something unbearable. She had already mourned the marriage while she was still alive. I was just beginning. People think realization brings relief. It doesn't. It brings responsibility to tell the truth, even when it makes you look small. That's why I'm speaking now, not to be forgiven, but to warn, to interrupt your comfort. Lean into conversations that feel inconvenient. Don't wait for crisis to become curious. Love is not proven in emergencies. It's proven in ordinary moments when nothing forces you to care. I found Maggie's journal by accident. That's how the deepest truths usually arrive, unannounced, unprotected, unprepared for. I was cleaning the closet, not because I wanted to, because when grief has nowhere to go, it disguises itself as productivity. I moved boxes we hadn't opened in years, old coats, shoes she hadn't worn since her knees started hurting, a life quietly packed away. At the back of the shelf was a small cloth-bound notebook, blue, faded, soft at the edges. I knew immediately it was hers. Maggie loved writing things down, recipes, quotes, reminders, little pieces of herself she never asked anyone to read. My first instinct was to put it back. Some part of me knew that once I opened it, there would be no going back. But another part of me, the part that had arrived too late, needed to know. I sat on the bed and opened the first page. The handwriting was careful, familiar. I don't know who I'd be if I asked for more. I had to stop reading after that, because that sentence explained our entire marriage. Maggie didn't stop wanting. She stopped asking. I kept reading. Page after page, she wrote things she never said out loud, not because she was afraid, because she was considerate. She wrote about feeling selfish for wanting attention when I was working so hard. She wrote about rehearsing conversations in her head and deciding not to have them because she didn't want to add pressure. She wrote about feeling lonely next to me and hating herself for feeling that way. One entry destroyed me. I think Henry loves me in theory, not in practice, not in presence, not in pursuit. I had become an idea, not an experience. I remembered that anniversary. I bought her a bracelet. She smiled, hugged me, said thank you. That night I fell asleep quickly. She stayed up. In the journal she wrote, "He bought me something beautiful. I wish he had asked me something meaningful." I closed the book. I couldn't breathe. Because she wasn't ungrateful. She was unseen, I used to say. She knows how I feel. That sentence is a refuge for emotionally lazy people. Knowing is not the same as feeling, and feeling doesn't survive on assumptions. Love needs evidence. And mine was abstract. The hardest entry was near the end. Her handwriting had grown shakier. "I don't think he realizes I've been grieving him while he's still here." That sentence changed how I understood loss. She didn't lose me when she died. She lost me years earlier. I was physically present, emotionally unavailable, a ghost with a pulse. Some people will ask, why didn't she insist? Why didn't she demand more? Because Maggie loved peace. Because she believed love meant compromise. Because she thought asking repeatedly would turn her into a burden. She chose silence over conflict, and I rewarded that silence with comfort. The final entry was written just weeks before she went into the hospital. It was short. No self-pity, no blame, just clarity. If I don't get the love I need, I hope he gets the truth. I sat there holding that journal, realizing she had given me one final gift. Not absolution, truth. Maggie wasn't weak. She was patient beyond reason. She wasn't quiet because she lacked depth. She was quiet because she loved someone who didn't know how to meet her there. And I wasn't cruel. I was complacent. which in the end hurts just as much. There is a kind of love that survives without nourishment. It doesn't complain, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't leave. It just withers slowly, hoping to be noticed. That was Maggie's love. And I mistook its endurance for satisfaction. If someone in your life has stopped asking, that is not peace. That is surrender. If they've stopped bringing things to you, they've already learned you won't hold them. Don't confuse silence with harmony. After reading her words, the house felt different, louder. Because now I could hear all the conversations that never happened, all the questions I never asked, all the moments I postponed until there were none left. I slept in that bed alone, knowing she had shared it for years with someone who wasn't fully there. That knowledge doesn't fade, it settles. Mornings are the hardest now, not nights. Nights are expected to be lonely. They come with permission to ache. But mornings still surprise me. For 40 years, Maggie woke before I did. Not because she had to, because she liked easing into the day. She used to hum softly while making coffee. Not a song, just a sound. I didn't realize how much of my life was anchored to that sound until it was gone. Now I wake up and the house doesn't respond. No footsteps, no kettle, no presence, just air. People imagine regret as dramatic. It's not. Regret is noticing there's no one to tell small things to, that the silence doesn't break when you enter a room, that nothing waits for you anymore. Maggie used to wait, even when I didn't deserve it. I notice how cold the bed feels on her side, how the house doesn't settle at night. It echoes. How my phone never lights up with, "Did you eat?" How no one asks me how my day was, and actually means it. I trained her not to ask. Now I live with the result. There are things you assume you'll say someday. Apologies, gratitude, truth. You think there will be a right moment. There isn't. There is only the moment you choose or miss. I missed mine. I used to think emotional safety meant calm. No arguments, no tension, no raised voices. I was wrong. Emotional safety is knowing your feelings will be received, not managed. It's knowing you won't be dismissed, delayed, or minimized. Maggie wasn't safe with me emotionally, not because I was cruel, but because I was unavailable. Maggie used to say, "I don't need much." I believed her. That was my mistake. Low-maintenance people still need care. They just won't demand it. And if you don't offer it freely, they go without. Quietly. At the funeral, people spoke kindly about me. Devoted. Steady. Strong. I nodded. But inside, I felt like a fraud. Because devotion without engagement is just proximity. Strength without softness is just distance. They remembered a version of me that never fully showed up. Maggie knew the truth. For weeks after she died, I replayed our life looking for excuses. I worked hard. I was faithful. I stayed. None of it helped, because love is not graded on a curve. You don't get credit for what you didn't destroy. You're measured by what you nurtured. And I had starved the most important relationship of my life. Time doesn't heal regret. It clarifies it. You don't forget. You understand. And understanding without action is torture. That's why I speak now. Ask yourself this honestly. Does your partner still bring you their thoughts? Or have they stopped because it feels pointless? If they've gone quiet, don't relax. Lean in. I would give anything for one more ordinary morning. One where I turn over and say, "Tell me what you're thinking." It happened on a Sunday, the kind of Sunday that feels too quiet to be safe. Daniel and Claire came over together. That alone told me something was different. We sat in the living room, The same room where Maggie waited, where silence learned to live comfortably. Daniel spoke first. "Dad, we need to talk." Those words used to make me tense. Now they just make me tired. I nodded. Claire didn't ease into it. She never did. She said, "Mom was lonely." I felt my chest tighten. Daniel added, "She hid it well, but we saw it." I opened my mouth to explain. Claire raised her hand gently. "Please don't." That was the moment I realized they weren't angry. They were done protecting me from the truth. They told me about nights I went to bed early while Maggie stayed up, about how she would sit at the kitchen table long after dishes were done, about how she used to say, "He's tired," whenever they asked why I didn't come talk. They weren't accusing. They were remembering. And memory doesn't argue. Daniel said something I will carry to my grave. Mom taught us how to love people who aren't fully there. That's when I cried. Not quietly, not politely. Fully. Because I realized my emotional absence didn't just affect my marriage, it shaped my children's expectations of love. I thought legacy was what you leave behind. Money, security, stability. I was wrong. Legacy is what you normalize. I normalized emotional distance. I taught my children that love means adjusting to absence. That lesson follows them into every relationship, and I can never undo it. I told them I loved their mother. They nodded. "We know," Claire said, "but loving someone isn't the same as making them feel loved." There was no malice in her voice, just clarity. They weren't asking for an apology. They weren't trying to heal me. They were releasing something they had carried for years. And I understood then. Maggie hadn't been alone in her loneliness. They felt it too. Daniel said, "I don't want to be like you." He said it calmly, not cruelly, honestly. That hurt more than anger ever could, because it was deserved. I didn't know how. Claire nodded. "That's okay," she said, but now you do. That's the cruel gift of awareness. It comes when usefulness is gone. I am telling you this because I don't want you to wait until your children confront you with truths you can no longer fix. Don't make them carry the emotional weight of your silence. Don't let them learn that love is something you endure. I thought being dependable was enough. I was wrong. Dependability keeps people safe. Connection makes them feel alive. Maggie needed both. I gave her one. After they left, I sat alone and realized something devastating. No one was mad at me. They had simply moved on emotionally. And that's worse. People talk about growth like it's always hopeful, like realization automatically leads to redemption. No one tells you what it feels like to change after the people who needed it are gone. I am 78 years old. I am finally learning how to listen, and there is almost no one left who needs me to. Change at my age isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's catching myself before dismissing a feeling and realizing there's no one in the room. It's wanting to ask questions and having no one to ask. Growth without repair feels like learning to swim after the ship has already sunk. I still catch myself reaching for my phone when conversations get uncomfortable. Still feel the urge to fix instead of feel. Still default to silence when emotion asks something of me. The difference now is that I notice. Awareness is not mercy. It's responsibility. For a long time, I wanted forgiveness from Maggie, from my children, from myself. I've learned something painful. Forgiveness is not a reward for regret. It's a gift others choose to give, or not. And sometimes the lesson is learning to live without it. I used to imagine her forgiving me, telling me I did my best, releasing me. But Maggie's last words were not forgiveness. They were truth. And truth doesn't comfort. It clarifies. Regret stays because it has work to do. It keeps you honest. It prevents you from rewriting history to protect your ego. If regret disappeared, I might convince myself I was enough. I wasn't. And that matters. Daniel and Claire didn't punish me. They adjusted. They keep their conversations lighter now, surface level, safe. They love me, but they don't lean on me. That's the cost of emotional absence. People stop trusting you with their inner lives. And trust, once lost, doesn't regenerate easily. I can't fix the past, but I can stop pretending it didn't matter. I can tell the truth, even when it makes me look small. I can warn others while they still have time. That may be the only meaningful thing left for me to offer. That is the most dangerous thought a person can have. Time doesn't announce its limits. It just closes doors quietly. One day, the last opportunity passes, and you don't even realize it was the last. Love requires interruption of habits, of comfort, of self-importance. If loving someone doesn't inconvenience you, you're probably not doing it fully. Maggie didn't need a different man. She needed me, fully present. That's what makes this unbearable. I didn't lack capacity. I lacked willingness. I don't want sympathy. I don't want absolution. I want you, whoever is listening, to pause, to turn toward the person you think will always be there, to arrive before you're remembered as someone who never did. The last weeks of Maggie's life were unlike anything I had ever witnessed. She was weak. She was tired. She was scared. But she was also braver than I had ever been. While I was busy managing logistics, appointments, medication, doctors, she faced the unthinkable quietly. She faced mortality without complaint, without dramatics, without asking me to do more than sit beside her. And yet, she gave me one final powerful lesson. Love is action, not intention. One evening, she took my hand, the way she used to when we were newlyweds. "Henry," she whispered. I leaned in, trying to mask the panic in my chest. Tell me everything," she said. I blinked. I didn't understand. "Tell me about your day. Tell me what's in your heart. Don't just exist. Live with me, even for a moment." I froze. And then I saw it. That look. The same look she had given me decades ago when I wasn't listening. She wasn't asking. She was reminding me. And I had failed. For 40 years, I had mistaken silence for peace. I had thought no complaints meant satisfaction. Now I realized silence had always been her bravery in disguise. She endured emotional absence because she loved me, even when I didn't meet her halfway. Every day she acted courageously. She survived in a marriage where she was unseen, and she never stopped teaching me. Love is measured in presence, not promises. You can say you love someone 1,000 times. You can buy gifts, provide security, speak the words. But if your heart is elsewhere, if your attention is delayed, if your actions don't arrive when needed, love is only a shadow. Maggie loved fully even when I did not. In the last days of her life, I realized something painful. She didn't need perfection. She didn't need me to solve everything. She needed me to be fully there, even in small ways. Her courage was not in grand gestures, it was in choosing to hope for me one last time. She chose to wait, and that 6-word sentence, "I waited for you," was the culmination of the decades of patience, resilience, and love. Maggie left me a gift that is both cruel and beautiful, clarity. She showed me exactly what I had done wrong. She didn't yell, she didn't scold, she simply stated the truth and left. I finally saw my life as it had been, full of intention but empty of action. I would give all my achievements, all my money, all my years for one ordinary evening where I truly arrived for her, one night where I listened, one morning where I asked about her dreams, 1 hour where I was fully present. Time doesn't allow me that now, and that is the cruelest part of all. If you are listening to this, do not make my mistake. Do not wait. Do not assume they know how much you care. Do not rely on tomorrow, because tomorrow may be the day they quietly stop asking, and you will finally realize it was your job to arrive every day without fail. Regret isn't just sadness. Regret is recognition of what could have been different. It's the understanding that small acts of presence outweigh grand gestures of intention. It's the realization that emotional absence cannot be undone by wealth, loyalty, or excuses, and it is painful beyond measure when the person who deserved your presence most is gone. Courage isn't always loud. Courage is enduring disappointment silently. Courage is loving someone even when they fail you. Courage is waiting for the life you imagined with someone who never fully arrives. And Maggie, she taught me courage every single day of her life. The last weeks of Maggie's life were unlike anything I had ever witnessed. She was weak. She was tired. She was scared. But she was also braver than I had ever been. While I was busy managing logistics, appointments, medication, doctors, she faced the unthinkable quietly. She faced mortality without complaint, without dramatics, without asking me to do more than sit beside her. And yet she gave me one final powerful lesson. Love is action, not intention. One evening, she took my hand, the way she used to when we were newlyweds. "Henry," she whispered. I leaned in, trying to mask the panic in my chest. Tell me everything," she said. I blinked. I didn't understand. "Tell me about your day. Tell me what's in your heart. Don't just exist. Live with me, even for a moment." I froze, and then I saw it. That look. The same look she had given me decades ago when I wasn't listening. She wasn't asking, she was reminding me. For 40 years, I had mistaken silence for peace. I had thought no complaints meant satisfaction. Now I realized silence had always been her bravery in disguise. She endured emotional absence because she loved me, even when I didn't meet her halfway. Every day she acted courageously. She survived in a marriage where she was unseen, and she never stopped teaching me. And I had failed. Love is measured in presence, not promises. You can say you love someone 1,000 times. You can buy gifts, provide security, speak the words. But if your heart is elsewhere, if your attention is delayed, if your actions don't arrive when needed, love is only a shadow. Maggie loved fully, even when I did not. In the last days of her life, I realized something painful. She didn't need perfection. She didn't need me to solve everything. She needed me to be fully there, even in small ways. Her courage was not in grand gestures. It was in choosing to hope for me one last time. She chose to wait. And that 6-word sentence, "I waited for you," was the culmination of decades of patience, resilience, and love. Maggie left me a gift that is both cruel and beautiful. Clarity. She showed me exactly what I had done wrong. She didn't yell. She didn't scold. She simply stated the truth and left. I finally saw my life as it had been, full of intention but empty of action. I would give all my achievements, all my money, all my years, for one ordinary evening where I truly arrived for her. One night where I listened, one morning where I asked about her dreams, 1 hour where I was fully present. Time doesn't allow me that now, And that is the cruelest part of all. If you are listening to this, do not make my mistake. Do not wait. Do not assume they know how much you care. Do not rely on tomorrow, because tomorrow may be the day they quietly stop asking, and you will finally realize it was your job to arrive every day without fail. Regret isn't just sadness. Regret is recognition of what could have been different. It's the understanding that small acts of presence outweigh grand gestures of intention. It's the realization that emotional absence cannot be undone by wealth, loyalty, or excuses. And it is painful beyond measure when the person who deserved your presence most is gone. Courage isn't always loud. Courage is sheer enduring disappointment silently. Courage is loving someone even when they fail you. Courage is waiting for the life you imagined with someone who never fully arrives. And Maggie? She taught me courage every single day of her life. I am 78 years old. I have spent decades learning the hard way what love actually demands. And though I cannot change the past, I have learned to live with intention, to love fully, even late, to honor Maggie, even in her absence. Every morning I remind myself, listen first, not to respond, but to understand. Ask questions, even if the answers are small or inconvenient. Acknowledge feelings, never dismiss, never delay. It is exhausting sometimes. My body is frail. My mind slows down. But presence isn't about perfection. It's about effort and consistency. Grief doesn't leave you. It becomes part of your life. I have learned to carry it gently. I allow myself to cry when I need to. I speak aloud to Maggie as if she were still beside me. I write my thoughts down so they do not twist into bitterness. Grief is no longer punishment. It is reminder and teacher. Time is not promised. Every day, every hour, every conversation is a chance that will never return. Maggie waited for me for days. I cannot reclaim that time, but I can stop wasting what remains. 1. Love is action. Say it, show it, live it. 2. Presence matters more than gifts. The time you give is more valuable than anything you can buy. 3. Do not assume understanding. People must feel your love, not just hear it. 4. Listen, without judgment, without distraction. 5. Regret is powerful. Let it guide you, not destroy you. I will never fully forgive myself for the years I was absent, but I am learning to live with honesty. Maggie's gift was the truth. My task is to honor it by being better in the time I have left, not by punishing myself for the past. If you are listening to this story, know this. Do not wait for tragedy to teach you what love requires. Do not wait for the person you love to leave before you notice them. Do not mistake presence for engagement. Arrive fully, speak honestly, listen deeply, and never assume tomorrow is guaranteed. Because the greatest gift we can give someone is our full attention, our care, and our love while they are still here. My name is Henry Collins. I am 78 years old. I wasted 40 years, and I will spend the rest of my life making every remaining moment count.